Good morning. Welcome to the Daniel Wortman Show, coming to you live from the Dream Imagine Sports Studios. It is 9 a.m. on the East Coast. This is your 6 a.m. West Coast wake-up call in all time zones in between. Welcome into the show. Thanks for tuning in this Monday morning, June the 3rd. It was a big weekend, and we have a big day today. Packed show. UEFA Champions League final on Saturday. I've talked about it a bunch on this show. Barca are my absolute number one favorite club in the world, but Liverpool is a close second, and it broke my heart when Liverpool pulled off the improbable comeback that day, but I was definitely rooting for them this past Saturday. And we will get to that in just a second. What happened to the 2-0 win, sixth trophy, sixth European Cup for Liverpool Football Club. Today on the show, we have Hope Solo coming up here in just a few minutes. If you're new to the show, basically the format is we kind of talk about all kinds of subjects involved related to the game of soccer in the U.S., but also around the world. And we look forward to getting into a host of topics with Hope coming up here in just a few minutes. The game Saturday was a snooze fest in terms of beautiful soccer. I mean, let's just call it what it was. It was not a beautiful game. It was not entertaining from the standpoint of hoping to tune in and watch some high-level soccer. If you paid attention to the drama in the semifinals between Liverpool and Barcelona, Ajax and Tottenham, and you were expecting Liverpool and Tottenham to have a dramatic match in similar ways that they competed head-to-head in the Premier League this year, that didn't happen. It was a penalty in the first 30 seconds. But I don't really think – a lot of people said that they thought that changed – you can't plan for that, that changed the game, that was going to somehow affected the remaining 90 minutes, that Liverpool can't plan for that and therefore kind of put them out of whack, and then Tottenham can't plan for that, and they just couldn't get back into it. Both of these teams dealt with drama. Both of these teams dealt with mountains to climb, multiple goal deficits that they had to get back. Tottenham being down after the first minute or so, 1-0 off of a penalty, and having not essentially 90 minutes to get it back. I just don't buy that as the reason why Tottenham were out of sorts or why Liverpool were out of sorts. Now, did it maybe for a few minutes, was there a little bit of a buzz? Was there a little bit of some nerves and butterflies? Certainly. Now, did it affect a few players on the field? I think so. I think both of the outside backs for Liverpool, Trent Alexander-Arnold as well as Andy Robertson, I think they both lost their composure a little bit in terms of just staying calm on the ball. They just it almost felt like in the few minutes after the goal that, and really maybe for those two players particularly, kind of going through a lot of the first half, they're almost losing their nerve. Anytime they got the ball, they were just wanting to kick it out or kick it long, get it away from me, rather than just taking a deep breath and calming down. They seem to do that more and more getting into the second half. Those two players, but the rest of the team, I didn't get that sense of unease. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of thoughts going through your head. I mean, you're up 1-0. You weren't expecting it to come that quick, but regardless, I don't think Liverpool lost their nerve for the 90 minutes and just couldn't handle it. And I also think the same about Tottenham. What I think happened on Saturday was that Jurgen Klopp decided to give Tottenham possession and basically dare them to break Liverpool down. He made the tactical bet that Tottenham would struggle to break Liverpool down in and around the 18-yard box. We'll give you possession in the center of the pitch. We're going to drop back. If you come into these spots, we're going to pressure you, and you saw that. Time and time again, Tottenham would keep possession, and they would recycle possession. They'd play back to their goalkeeper over and over and over again, and we're not finding many opportunities to get dangerous. Now, on the flip side of that, Pochettino, to me, made a major tactical error, and that was starting Harry Kane. Harry Kane has not played in 3 months. Harry Kane, I get that, you know, he's your captain, and you think, okay, if he's fit and he's ready, we're going to play him from the start. But you played him at the expense of Lucas Moura, and Lucas Moura, not only did he have the hat trick that got you to the finals, but Lucas Moura is a player that has pace. None of the 4 players in Tottenham's front attacking players of their 4-2-3-1 have pace. The 4 that Pochettino started. So there was not any player that was going to give Liverpool worries if they were able to get on the ball. Lucas Moura would have done that. And Lucas Moura, you know, when he did come in later in the game, Tottenham started to get some chances in and around the box. Liverpool were having to account for him. He was finding spaces, you know, in the 18, able to get a shot off. It wasn't a great shot, but I just have to think that if Pochettino would have played Lucas Moura from the start, had Harry Kane on the bench as an option to come in later, I think Tottenham probably would have had better rhythm, even if they'd have gone down a goal in the first, you know, moments of the game. I think Tottenham would have had a better opportunity to even that score or score multiple goals. Harry Kane was not going to provide that pace, and none of the other 3 that were in that group of 4 up top were going to, you know, provide that pace either. And I think they suffered for it, and it was a little too late. Liverpool had chances as well, and, you know, weren't able to get any of them to stick until Divock Origi's second goal, his first goal of the match, second goal for Liverpool, as the match was kind of coming to a close, and that basically iced it. I mean, you could see Tottenham players, they were fighting to get that equalizer, and once that second goal went in, they knew it was over. 2-0, Liverpool won the UEFA Champions League, 6th European Cup, and first since 2005. It was a big night of relief for the Liverpool players, the coaching staff, Jurgen Klopp. He talked a little bit about it after the match and some post-game press conferences and interviews. You could see the team when they celebrated with a parade through the city yesterday. You could see that they were really enjoying themselves. It's like a big load was off their shoulders. They had an incredible season. Finished 1 point from winning the Premier League. And that 1 point from winning the Premier League, 97 points, I mean, in most years would have won the Premier League. That's how good the season. I mean, you could sit here and say, well, they didn't win the league, and you're absolutely right. And you cannot take that away from Man City. But at the same time, you have to acknowledge the season Liverpool had, and for them to be able to fight back, take out Barcelona in the improbable comeback in the Champions League semifinals to reach the final and get a trophy, get some hardware to cap off this really, really good season, was remarkable for this group, this squad, and this coaching staff. You can see, if you follow Liverpool at all, you can see that this project is a project. There is intentionality to it. You can see a methodology to it. You can see, you know, calm heads, level heads, and the same ownership group that owns the Boston Red Sox, that owns the Liverpool Football Club. They have a way about going about things. Like they have a way that they do things, and you could see that as an ownership, they put faith in the right people. They hired good people. They got, in my view, the greatest man manager in the world. You could argue he's the second greatest manager in the world right now, behind Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp. No one gives a better interview than that guy, and he is definitely on my list of interviews I really want to have, guests I really want to have on the show, and I'll keep my fingers crossed that maybe one day I can get him on. But he's made a massive difference, and so credit to them, kudos to them. Congratulations to the Liverpool Football Club, winners of the UEFA Champions League in the 2018-19 season. And I know that their sights are going to be set on winning it all next year in the Premier League and probably multiple competitions, including getting back to Istanbul in the final next year. Long way to go, but congratulations to them. Look, we have a new sponsor for the show, and we are really excited about this sponsor, and it is Duck Kick Brand. We had on Tiffany Weimer a couple weeks ago, and she is one of the co-founders of Duck Kick Brand, and it is a really cool company. It's a really cool brand. If you haven't come in contact with them, you haven't experienced their products, check them out at duttkickbrand.com, DUTKIG brand.com, to learn more about their products, their journals, their soccer specific journals. They have waterproof journals, they have t-shirts, they have the works. Go check them out. And if you use promo code DWShow, when you go to check out, you'll get 10% off your order, and at the same time support this show. So check them out at Duck Kick Brand. We will be back here in just a few minutes with Hope Solo, and we are really excited to have her on and talk to her as she gets ready to head over for coverage of the World Cup coming up in 2019. So stay tuned. We will be right back. Welcome back into the show. Thanks for tuning in this Monday morning, June the 3rd. We are really excited to have joining us on the show, Hope Solo. Hope, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Daniel. It's good to be here.
Thanks for coming on. It has been a while. We did a lot of meeting and greeting and talking a little over a year ago, as you were running for president of U.S. Soccer, and I was running Eric Winalda's campaign for president of U.S. Soccer. And I want to say, before we get into anything else, that the speech you gave at the U.S. Soccer AGM 2018 in Orlando, Florida, has to be the best speech ever given at a U.S. Soccer AGM. I think on the anniversary of that speech, I think I cut up the video clips of that speech and sent it out again on social media because I felt like it was something everybody needed to watch. It was really good, and you had some really poignant things to say. So I just wanted to say that was incredible, and it was a great speech.
Thank you. You know, the election feels like a lifetime ago. I can't believe it was only a year ago. My goodness.
It was crazy. It was a whirlwind. I still get a lot of questions, a lot of fascination behind the scenes, and we'll have to have you back on to kind of go. I would love to do that, to get with you and talk through some of the.
A lot of stories.
A lot of stories to share, for sure. But on a bigger level, for the purposes of today, I want to ask you, before we get into your coverage of the World Cup coming up and you know the legal process that you're involved in, what inspired you to run for president of U.S. Soccer back in 2018?
Yeah, so as you are well aware, I was the last candidate to enter the race. I think I only had about 2 months to campaign, and most of the voting delegates had already, secured who they were going to vote for. So I put myself in a very difficult position. But for so long, I had been trying to fight for positive change from the outside as a player. And when I thought about the chance to be able to affect it from the inside, I felt like I had to at least try. And I knew from the very onset that I was not going to win this election. I absolutely knew that. But I knew that my voice had to be heard. I knew that these issues had to be raised. And what I saw with many of the candidates, it was very political. You wanted to say the right things at the right time. You wanted to be very politically correct. And even with some of the change candidates, it was kind of a hard balance to play. So I wanted to go in, and I just wanted to be honest and direct. And I wanted to give, after I spoke to many of the state association presidents, and I spoke to I spent hours on the phone with many of the voting delegates. I realized so many people want change, just nobody knows how to go about it. And so after I gave that speech that you were talking about, I received a standing ovation. And quite frankly, I was in shock. But it's because people wanted to hear the truth. People didn't want to see, candidates back down to U.S. soccer. And, to this day, I'm very proud of that moment. I know that my voice was heard. Now, whether any changes have been made, we still have a long, long road to go. But it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I'm not really one, despite what people think. I tend to be pretty introverted, pretty shy. So I'm not really one to get up on the podium and do something like I did. But it was a very important moment because I think people needed to hear all of the issues within U.S. soccer and within soccer in this country.
Certainly, and I was definitely, I will proudly admit, I was one in the back in the kind of general admission viewing area who was on my feet with most everyone in the room. You're not exaggerating for the audience. The standing ovation. It wasn't just a handful of us. The entire room was applauding, and I thought it was a big moment. It was a good moment. And the reason why I wanted to start off our interview today with that moment and that running for president in the first place, because I really want to get down to why you do what you do in terms of pursuing justice in U.S. soccer. You not only put your neck on the line and you ran for president. You knew it was an uphill climb. I know behind the scenes, talking with you and Melinda and others, that you wanted to get a message across. You wanted to get a point across. You knew you were facing an uphill battle, but you had some things that you wanted to say, some things you wanted to share, and you were standing on principle. And I think that's a really key point that the public needs to know, which is leading me to this: why you have now continued that work towards justice in U.S. soccer with your discrimination suit against the federation. What were you experiencing as a player that were causing enough issues to go beyond just, complaining? We all have things in life that we don't like, whether it's in work, a job, or whatever, and you go, man, I wish this would change, or I wish this. But it takes something to go, deep, to go beyond that, to a place where you're willing and wanting to say, hey, enough is enough. This is beyond, like, I don't like the flavor of coffee you put in the break room. This is a real issue. So what as a player were you experiencing that drove you to run for president and then continue that fight for women and really, quite frankly, for everyone in this country to be treated equally by the Federation?
Well, Daniel, oh goodness, I think I've had a number of different people, therapists, psychologists, sports writers, you name it, try to figure out what makes me me, and try to figure out why I'm willing to take such sacrifice and stand on principle when in this day and age it's oftentimes very difficult to do, and it's oftentimes not the popular thing to do to stand on principle. We all want to believe that standing on principle is something that we all should do, but when it comes right down to it, it can affect our livelihoods, it can affect our jobs, it can affect um, the way people perceive us, whether that's being difficult or outspoken or somebody they don't really want to deal with. So I don't think there's really one answer on why I am the way I am. I would have to go way back into my childhood to really address those issues. I think, being raised by very strong women, my mother and my grandmother had a lot to do with it. I was raised to think that equality was very normal. I always spoke out about the things that I saw was unequal or unfair, even as a young girl. And I never thought of it as activism. It wasn't this new age thing. It wasn't in popular culture. Feminism right now and equality is all in vogue right now. You see it in television and movies right now. You see it in Hollywood. You see it in our fight in sports. But it really hasn't been popular for too long. So I was always seen as the difficult one, the asshole. And then I realized activism is so much bigger than just standing for something. You have to be willing to actually do something about it. So what I see in this day and age, even though it's so in vogue to be an activist or to be pro-woman, people aren't doing enough. People are wearing equality T-shirts when they get off the bus, but what are they actually doing to fight for it? And I think that goes a little bit deeper because as a player, I've been on the team for so long. And I actually came on the team after the height of the 1999 World Cup. I came in that same year at the end of 1999. And I saw the way the women could be treated every day, long term throughout the years as we build the game, as we build the sport. They were treated like rock stars. We were staying in fantastic hotels. We had security taking us to the airport. We were protected. And we were treated with respect because of what the 1999 team did. Well, right going in right after the 2000 Olympics, things went back to no security. Things went back to flying in the middle seats in the very back of the airplane. We started to practice at high school fields again. So even though 1999 was very pivotal, U.S. Soccer took that year, took the 2000 Olympics, and then they decided, well, they don't need to spend money on the women anymore because it's not a World Cup year, it's not an Olympic year. And so we saw everything. So I saw what it could be, and then suddenly I saw how U.S. Soccer really wanted to treat the women. And then it was the same thing over the course of, probably a decade and a half, where we had to fight for better doctors, fight for better trainers. We had to spend energy on things, quite frankly, we should not have been spending energy on. And I think it just, I was always behind the scenes speaking up. I was always a thorn in U.S. Soccer's side, asking them, why aren't we traveling first class like the men travel first class, or like the men actually travel on charters? And I'd ask all of these questions, and I'd be told, Hope, just this is above your pay grade. Just get in the gold and save some balls, but you're asking these questions that are above your pay grade. And I can't tell you how many times I just got played to the left. I couldn't get an answer. I couldn't get any reasoning on. See, I was a part of 4 different CBA negotiations, and we were told time and time and time again that if we want a CBA that is similar to the men's contract, then it is a non-starter for negotiations. So this went on and on and on for 4 CBA negotiations. So we're talking, we're going on 2 decades now. And so it really all came to a head. I think U.S. Soccer got pretty much sick and tired of me. I led the way for our fight for equality in the lawsuit in 2015. And then shortly thereafter, I was fired, as we all know, in 2016. But, U.S. Soccer says my firing was for calling Sweden cowards. But what nobody knows is I had actually sent an email to U.S. Soccer right before we went to Brazil, asking where the money was going with Soccer United Marketing, because we had just put out these video vignettes, and we were told that they would not be sold commercially. And we found out right before the Brazil Olympics that they were sold. And so I'd asked them, well, how come, you guys are making money off of us and we're not seeing a dime out of it? And shortly thereafter, I was fired. As soon as I talked about Soccer United Marketing, I was fired.
Soccer United Marketing, for anyone who doesn't know, is a second company owned by MLS owner-operators. So they own Major League Soccer, but they also own a second company called Soccer United Marketing, and it's that vehicle that is used to partner directly with the U.S. Soccer Federation. They are in business together through this company, Soccer United Marketing, and we could spend the rest of the show going down that rabbit hole. But just suffice to say that that element is influential on decision-making, financial arrangements. It is a no-bid contract that was awarded to Major League Soccer through this secondary company, Soccer United Marketing, that Hope is alluding to in terms of this specific incident, but it influences a lot of issues within U.S. Soccer. So you get released from the program, from the team, essentially fired from the U.S. women's national team, and they are also heavily involved in the NWSL as well, and so what kind of from that point, what at that level said, okay, enough is enough. I'm going to take this fight to someone else who can actually do something about it. If you're not going to do something about it, I'm going to take it to somebody who can. So at what point did you make that decision to challenge U.S. Soccer directly?
Well, we're probably talking about 2 different lawsuits, but real quick, let me give you the history on the federal lawsuit, the equal pay lawsuit, which is so important to so many different people. That lawsuit we actually filed with the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which is a government agency. We filed that back in 2015, shortly after we won the World Cup. And the EEOC had sat on our case for 2 years with no meaningful action. We filed just after the change in the administration, and really the EEOC just did not have a lot of resources or support, financial support to see our case through. So at that point, I realized I cannot put my faith right now into the EEOC. So I, in fact, officially filed my federal lawsuit under Title VII in the Equal Pay Act about now, almost a year ago now. So I became the first athlete to file a federal lawsuit under the Equal Pay Act. We've had a couple court hearings in regards to that. The team, the current U.S. women's national team, filed about 10 months after me. So they, too, have a federal lawsuit against U.S. Soccer. So this is huge. This can hopefully change the landscape of our future generations, especially women in sport. And hopefully, if there's no settlement, we'll have to see what happens. And U.S. Soccer, I'm not sure they want to settle. I'm not sure the tactic they're going to play in this game, but Carlos Cordero could be the hero. He could look at this and say, okay, the Equal Pay Act was filed in 1963. The men and the women, it's simple, it's black and white. They do not get paid equally. I can be the hero right now, and I'm going to make these contracts equal moving forward. So Carlos Cordero really has an opportunity to do something significant for the sport, to do something significant for women and for the future of the sport. And yet he has still refused to do anything in regards to these federal lawsuits. Do I think there's going to be a settlement? We'll see. We'll see if they get scared down the road. Otherwise, if it goes all the way to the federal judges, then perhaps we can set a precedent moving forward for all female athletes. And ultimately, that's what we want to do. That's personally what I want to do. So we'll have to see what happens in regards to that. With my other complaint with U.S. Soccer, the Ted Stevens Act, and I'm not sure your audience is aware of the two different lawsuits, but just recently we had a huge win in the courts through three different arbitrators who found U.S. Soccer unanimously in violation of the Ted Stevens Act. Now, this is huge for us because the Ted Stevens Act is the Amateur Athlete Act, and it gives athletes their rights. And these arbitrators basically stated that U.S. Soccer is in violation of these athletes' rights. They are not using 20% athletes on their decision making, which is policy for every national governing body, which is federal law under the Ted Stevens Act. And U.S. Soccer is not using 20% athlete representation to make major decisions within the organization. So this is a crucial step moving forward, which means we will now have a hearing to address all of the issues that, going back to the election and speaking to all of the state associations and all of the voting delegates, some of the main concerns were the fact that we are alienating so many people in the soccer world through the rising costs of youth sport, through alienating, our Hispanic, our Latino, our Black communities, and making soccer very much a rich white kid sport. We are not giving enough funds to the Paralympic team, to the adult leagues, to the U.S. Deaf team, everybody that falls under amateur soccer in America. U.S. Soccer is so focused on professional soccer, meaning the MLS, meaning the men's and the women's national team, that they are neglecting the rest of their constituents. They're neglecting the amateur soccer in America. And a national governing body must support all aspects of soccer in America. So now we get to move forward and we get to have a hearing in regards to all of these issues.
I want to make a quick point on something you just talked about in terms of priorities within the federation. I think the American audience is, by and large, from a general public standpoint, may not realize that when you grow up in Germany and you go to register and play for your local team, in your neighborhood, you register directly with the German National Federation. Now they have, state offices and they have, local offices, etc. But when you get your, player ID card in Germany or Spain or England, you are registering directly with your national governing body. In U.S. Soccer, when Hope talks about how they you bring up the fact that the federation is not addressing these other issues, U.S. Soccer has effectively completely outsourced everything other than the points that you've talked about: MLS, the U.S. women's national team, the U.S. men's national team, etc. If you're not a national team or a professional, they've basically said, okay, you can go and just do whatever you want under U.S. youth soccer, U.S. club soccer, USSSA, etc., and have really taken that stance into the way that they govern, and it has caused so many issues unnecessarily just from bad leadership, and that neglect has carried over, and it has had issues with access, with opportunity, whether you're an amateur youth player or even an aspiring club that wants to play professional, it's very, very difficult to do and to find your way and to stay viable because of the way that the Federation has created this environment. So looking at your case, both of these cases, if you were able to say, here's what I want to see in the end from a resolution standpoint, what would you hope to get out of these cases as a kind of a precedent going forward for the rest of American soccer?
Well, I think, as I said, with the equal pay lawsuit, I do want to set, just like you said, a precedent moving forward. Once we set a precedent, then that's going to change the landscape for all female athletes, not just soccer players, but female athletes in this country. So that is the end goal. It's going to take probably many years to get there. Probably, lots of money that personally I don't have to continue pushing these lawsuits forward. But we have a great team of people, and we're doing our best. And the law is on our side. The law and the facts are on our side. So, oftentimes it's a lot of work. I've read too many legal documents in the last year or so. Spoke to way too many attorneys, but we are dedicated to the fight, dedicated to the cause. And, I think we need, it's difficult, it's difficult because U.S. Soccer has a lot of sports journalists that are in their pocket. Unfortunately, it's a relationship where, let's say it's, Grant Wall. He needs to be in the good graces of U.S. Soccer in order to cover U.S. Soccer. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship. But then you see somebody who perhaps is a great journalist like Grant Wall not do the diligence to let the general public know this fight that we are struggling, that we're struggling with. But also, he's not really making it clear what U.S. Soccer is doing. So it's difficult. We have an uphill battle because we need the public sentiment. But how do we get public sentiment when a lot of journalists won't really touch this topic because they need to be in the good graces of U.S. Soccer? So it's very difficult. We're trying to make more intellectual friends, and we have a lot of those intellectual friends who write about the topic, but it's not the mainstream media, and that's been really difficult to overcome. Like I said, I'm hopeful. We have really difficult days. Sometimes I feel like I'm all alone in this fight and in this struggle. But I know that the law is on our side, and I know that we have the facts on our side, but it's just going to continue to be kind of an uphill battle that we just have to keep trudging along. So I encourage anybody listening right now, we need public sentiment, whether that's through social media, but these topics cannot just silently go away. We need to continue to discuss them. We need to continue to educate people. And hopefully, maybe after the World Cup, we'll get some of these sports journalists on our side to continue to educate the public as well. I think that's what's most important, because public sentiment right now is everything.
I agree, and it's actually right after the election, the results came out, and things fell the way they fell, and Carlos Cordero won the election. I went out into the lobby and met with some people involved in the election, and basically we discussed kind of where do we go from here. And one of the things that we talked about, and this is like moments after that result, so everybody was it was fresh. The wounds were fresh. Everyone was licking their wounds and frustrated and exasperated. There was a lot of passionate back and forth about what do we do? Where do we go from here? Do we all just give up and walk away and let them win or do we try to figure out a way forward? You are continuing to fight that battle forward. And there are, even though I know you may feel like you're alone at times, there are a lot of us who support your efforts and your work and are rooting for you and definitely, want to see what you're fighting for come to fruition. One of the things we talked about in that moment was the media. And so this show is actually a little bit of a response, or part of that inspiration came from that moment where we were all discussing where do we go from here, knowing that the American soccer media isn't going to cover some of the hard topics, and do so freely, because paychecks depend on it, or executives, and it goes back. We mentioned this a few moments ago about Soccer United marketing, because of the relationship that U.S. Soccer and Major League Soccer have through Soccer United marketing with their broadcast partners. There is a lot of influence there. And so they basically are unafraid to call up an ESPN or a Fox and say, look, we don't like the way this is being discussed, or we want this discussed this way. There's not a lot of independence when it comes to that coverage. And so, if you're a journalist out there and you're trying to figure out how to, to keep a job in the industry, sometimes you get faced with a very difficult choice. Just like, you've been faced with difficult choices. And so one of the things that I looked at was, how can I help? How can I and others kind of do something maybe that's independent and not have to be bound by that, and figure out a way forward to support efforts like yours that needs to be told, the stories that need to be told and covered. And which leads me to this, which is some really good things, positive things, exciting things for you as you are getting ready to leave to go to France and cover the Women's World Cup that's taking place this summer. You're going to be working for the BBC, covering the U.S. games, plus a lot of the big matches as well. And I think you're also doing some contributions and writing, guest columnist with The Guardian. So tell us a little bit about that and what you're looking forward to in terms of covering this World Cup coming up here at the end of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I did a little bit of coverage with the Men's World Cup in Ireland, and I was I was ill prepared and a little bit nervous because I had taken a good amount of time away from football after being fired and throughout the election. And I really just focused on my own lifestyle that Jeremy and I moved from Seattle to North Carolina. We are living now in kind of the country and homesteading and building our home, and it's a completely different lifestyle than ours in Seattle. And I really just kind of just focused on myself and that huge move for us. And so going into the Men's World Cup, I was pretty ill prepared, but I got a taste of commentating, and I can always fall back on being honest, and that I think sometimes has gotten me in trouble, and other times it's what makes me successful. So I'm going to stay true to who I am. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to call it as I see it, and I think that's probably why U.S. Soccer and Fox do not want me commentating for the American team. But I'm pretty excited to be working with BBC because it's very much about the game. It's less about all of the circus surrounding the game, the outside circumstances, the showmanship and the commercials and the politics, and it's more about the purity of the game. So I'm so excited to be commentating for BBC. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to read the game as I see it. I'm going to be myself, and I'm excited. And taking those 2 to 3 years away from the game, it has really kind of reinvigorated me to return to the game without any. I've seen many of my former teammates retire and then go straight into commentating, and there's something missing. There might be a little bit of, they weren't ready to return to the game, and you can tell and you can see it. There might be a little even jealousy that they're still not on the field. But I feel like I'm in such a good place to return to the game, to go to France, to just really unbiasedly look at the game and enjoy it. I mean, I'm in France, and at the Women's World Cup, we're going to have incredible packed stadiums, grass fields. It's everything a Women's World Cup should be, and it's everything Canada was not for us. So it's really exciting to be able to be a part of it, because truly this is the direction women's sports should be headed, and anything less than what France is going to host, honestly, shouldn't be acceptable by FIFA. and it shouldn't have been acceptable by FIFA in Canada. So I'm proud of France. I'm proud of the organizing committee, and I'm proud to be a part of BBC.
So looking at the World Cup and the teams that are going to be competing, the national teams that are going to be there, what do you see? Obviously, the U.S. women's national team, traditional powerhouse, the reigning world champions, World Cup champions. Who are the favorites? What are you in your preparation for this World Cup? What are you seeing as some of the favorite teams and any storylines that you're observing or watching as you're getting ready?
Yeah. Well, the United States, they have, a fairly easy group. They will get through the group, no problem. And that could be good or bad, to be honest, because all of a sudden they might play one of the top teams come to quarterfinals. If all goes well, they're going to meet France in the quarterfinals in Paris, and I think that is going to be one of the most epic games possibly. France versus the United States in France at the World Cup in the quarterfinals. So that's really the game I'm looking forward to. The U.S., I mean, it can go either way. Obviously, playing for Jill Ellis and playing for that team for so long, I know Jill's not the leader we all had hoped her to be, but we still win. We still win in spite of that, and we still win because we often are the most athletic team, the fittest team, and we have individual greatness, especially with our forwards. Our attacking players are some of the best attacking players in the world. But I always say defense wins tournaments and great goalkeeping wins tournaments. You cannot win a major tournament without a great goalkeeper. So I think it's going to be a major test for the United States defensively. And I'm not sure they're going to go all the way. Right now, if I was a betting person, which I am, but I am not betting this World Cup, mind you, I would be putting my money on France. I think France, although they do not have some of the caliber players that the United States does, they play like a team, and they pass the ball around, and they have movement off the ball, and they attack in numbers, and they are just a very, very difficult team to stop. And it's I just hope they don't succumb to any of the pressure of hosting the World Cup in their home country. But I truly think that they're the team to beat this tournament.
Well, all eyes will be on France in the month of June, going into July. I love whenever we get to the World Cup cycles, because you get them back to back. You get a men's World Cup in 2018, and we come right back with the women's World Cup in 2019. And so I love the cycle, and really looking forward to your coverage this summer, as well as the tournament itself, and really appreciate you coming on the show. How can people follow your story, follow your work, follow all of the efforts that you are involved in as well?
Well, I will be posting everything. I will be active on social media this tournament, which oftentimes I'm not very active, but I'll be doing videos. I'll be giving my game analysis. I'll be doing my pre and post game. My players at the game. I'll be doing videos through Bleacher Report for the American media. But otherwise, I recommend for some of the games, I think the American audience, it's great to tune into Fox, but you're going to get all of the side stories and the emotional stories and the kind of the circus acts surrounding the game. But if you really want to see some soccer specific coverage, some intellectual coverage, I really encourage the American audience to also tune into BBC's coverage of the games, because it's first class and it's very professionally done. So you can follow me on my social media, and I'll send all of those links out. But tune into BBC, because I think they're going to broadcast a great tournament.
Well, we will definitely do that. I know I will be doing that, and really appreciate you coming on the show. Let's not wait a year to catch up going forward. But I do wish you the best of luck with your cases and your coverage of this World Cup coming up, starting at the end of this week in France. So thanks for coming on the show, Hope. We really do appreciate it.
Daniel, thank you for everything. And I just want to to really, thank you for all the work that you've done. And even with this podcast, just keeping people informed. It doesn't go overlooked, and we need to stay in it together. So let's continue keeping up the good fight.
Thank you. We'll absolutely do, and look forward to having you back on again, maybe after the World Cup, and you can give us a recap, and maybe by then we'll have even more updates on some other things. So thanks for coming on the show.
That'd be wonderful.
Awesome.
Of course. Sounds good. Take care.
Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
That was Hope Solo, who stopped by the show. I'd like to thank her for coming on and spending some time with us, talking about her background in the game, her covering of this coming World Cup, as well as her court cases, fighting the fight for equal pay and equal treatment. And that's a bigger lesson here, an issue. It's not just about pay, it's about the treatment as well. And she has been courageous in that effort, and you should definitely, if you ever run into her, thank her, because it is a selfless thing that she is doing, working for the next generation. She's not getting anything from this going forward. She's fighting this fight for the next generation of young girls in this country. So I'd like to thank her for coming on the show. The sponsor for this half hour is Charity Water. You can learn more about Charity Water by going to charitywater.org. They provide clean drinking water to people all over this country. All over the world. And they do so by changing villages and changing people in bringing clean drinking water. Learn more about them at charitywater.org. We will be right back after this.
No one, no man, no woman, no child should ever have to drink green water with bugs, with algae, with disease in it. Bad water and a lack of toilets kills more people than all the wars in the world. We know how to bring clean drinking water right now to every single person on earth. And when you can bring water into communities, it truly transforms them. It changes everything. Or you could know that you'd made a difference. You could know that you had truly impacted the life of a family, of a community, of a region. There was either clean water or there wasn't. We believe in a world where every single person has clean and safe water to drink, and we will continue fighting until that happens.
Welcome back into the show. As we wind up today's show, June 3rd, getting ready for the World Cup. Excited. We heard Hope's comments about the team to watch, the team to beat. She predicts is going to be France, and I concur. It's going to be a tough match for the U.S. women's national team. We've definitely got the players and the talent, but do we have the ability to beat them on their home soil? We will see. One of the things about the women's game is really exciting is we are starting to see other countries around the world really start to take the game serious, put resources, investments, priorities placed on being a big deal. And we're seeing in Italy, we're seeing in Spain, we're seeing in France, England crowds are coming to matches. The attention is coming for these players, for these national teams, for these matches, and it is really, really exciting to see and to get to watch a World Cup where the women's matches are all going to be played on grass in great stadiums, the football infrastructure that is there for the men's and the women's games, in particular this summer with the women's national team matches, is really, really good, and it is a good moment for the women's game, and I look forward to following the storylines in these national teams in their efforts to win this World Cup. in the past, because of our laws, Title IX specifically, provided a lot of opportunity where we got a head start on the world in women's college soccer, and everything kind of fed our women's national team, where there were a lot of other countries that weren't putting a lot of resources there. Now that has changed, and we are seeing countries that have put time and money and interest into prioritizing the women's game as well. And so now we're seeing over the last 5-10 years and going forward, countries like Japan, countries like France and Germany and England, who are creating really, really competitive teams, national teams, and are doing so in a way where it's not just about a player or two. It is a cultural thing. So you're seeing the teams that are being developed in these footballing cultures are playing with an identity and a culture. And so one of the things that Hope highlighted there about her, if she had to pick right now, she would pick France, came down to the fact of the way that they play. They pass the ball around, they play as a team, and that culture is definitely evident on the men's side. It's evident on the women's side as well. And so it'll be fascinating to watch this summer. I look forward over the next 4, 5, 6 weeks to see this Women's World Cup play out, and to see if the U.S. Women's National Team can defend their World Cup. So it is always fun to be in World Cup cycles. So 2018 with the men's, we come right back. 2019 with the women's, and then once we close this down, next summer we get the Euros, and so it seems like almost every summer we have a great tournament to watch. This summer we also have Copa America that is taking place down in South America. That is another great tournament to follow and to watch as well. And so this time of year, it's different than the club season, but it is definitely a great, entertaining time to watch. We have CONCACAF Gold Cup that's taking place as well, a tournament that is not quite on the level of Copa America, or certainly not on the level of the Women's World Cup that the senior team, the U.S. national team, will be competing in as well. So, busy fixture schedule coming up for the TV viewing audience, but find a game somewhere, turn it on, watch it with your sons, watch it with your daughters, and enjoy the game and pass on the culture of soccer. That's one of the things that we as American soccer fans need to continue doing, which is preparing the next generation, imparting into the next generation a true soccer culture, watching games, rooting for players, picking teams, going back to the start of the show, watching teams like Liverpool or Tottenham. I have a friend of mine who has 2 sons, and each root for one of those teams. So one's a Liverpool fan, the other one's a Tottenham fan, and to hear about how the son who's a Tottenham fan was upset at the outcome of the game and wanted a different result, and that's healthy, that's good, and that's that feeling that you get around the world, and we need more of that in American soccer homes all over this country. So thanks for tuning into the show. Thanks for watching the show. Like to thank Hope Solo for coming on today. Also for welcome aboard our new sponsor, Dutkick Brand. You can find more information about Dutkick Brand at dutkigbrand.com. Also Charity Water and their work. So thanks for tuning into the show. Thanks for watching each and every weekday at 9 a.m. Eastern. And as always, you can find more information or connect with me on social media at Daniel Workman on Instagram, on Twitter, or at facebook.com/WRKMN. This show will be out for you to watch or to listen to later today and to send to friends. I would love for you to do that. And also send me any comments that you thought about the show or, like about the show or ideas for guests or whatever. Reach out. Love to chat with you. And, look, we all have to keep fighting the good fight and hope that we can get to a place where American soccer is treating everyone with dignity and respect and equality. That's men's and women's. That's also clubs. That's organizations. Everyone having the opportunity to rise on sporting merit as well. So thanks for tuning into the show. Again, thanks for Hope for coming on the show. Look forward to chatting with her again in the near future. And we have a busy show, busy lineup this week. And it's going to be a good week. So see everyone tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time at danielworkman.com. Goodbye, everybody.